Facebook.
Okay, ready to roll.
All you wonderful Facebook people from Bill Boggs's page and my page, come on in. Hey, there's Bill Boggs over there, you everybody. Yes, we know Bill Boggs. He's a living legend.
Oh, I don't know about that, please. I'm living. Let's just say I'm living. Leave it at that.
That's a real feat right now. So many people aren't.
Yeah.
Oh my. Have you been touched with COVID in your area personally?
Well, I happen to be in a little place called Florida right now, and touched would be like we've been hit with a sledgehammer, but we're just being as careful as we can. You know, what can we do except be as careful as possible? Yes. Wear a mask. You know, don't do anything that you don't need to do.
Exactly. Bill Boggs, I want to do your introduction. I don't know how much of it you want me to say. There's so much about you. You don't like being called a legend, but to me, you're a legend. You've done it all. You started with 2 coworkers at a job, went into show business and promoted them.
Yeah, they were a comedy team that ended up Tom Patchett and Jay Tarsis. They're still alive, and they went on to write for Mary Tyler Moore, Bob Newhart, and wrote Muppet movies and let's see, Buffalo Bill series. The Alf was created by Tom Patchett. Days and Nights of Molly Dodd. They did all that material. And when I worked with them, they were a performing comedy team who were my coworkers, and I helped launch their career and produce comedy. So the book that we're going to talk about really goes back to my roots in comedy. The very first 4 years of my career were spent in comedy, meeting people like George Carlin and Pryor and some of the greats of essentially the late 60s.
Yes. Back in the beginning, you went from promoting them, working for TV shows in Philadelphia. I mean, you graduated from a prestigious school, UPenn Annenberg School, right?
Yeah, but it was easy to get in back then. Now I couldn't even get into the West Palm Beach Junior Community College, I assure you. But I was somehow able to get in. And unlike a certain person we know, I actually took my own SATs to get into Penn. Did it myself, right?
Chalk one up for you on that. Boy.
Not that I wouldn't have paid anybody. I didn't have the money. Anyway, go ahead. Go ahead.
You've started different shows that never existed until you started them. You had the first talk show.
Well, no, I didn't have the first talk show, but I had a show the first show I had was it was a talk show in Philadelphia. It was on once a week, McLean and Company. And then I went down to North Carolina for 3 years and had a show called Southern Exposure with Bill Boggs that had all manner of guests. I mean, big name guests would come by and do a little syndicated show in the South because we didn't have morning shows like the Regis show at that time, you know. So I benefited from a period of time when local television or local syndicated television, which I was on, really could get major guests. And a lot of the interviews that I've done, or portions of them, have survived because I saved tapes in some cases. Most of the shows were live. And so if you go to Bill Boggs TV on YouTube, and you're a fan of Jerry Lewis or Yul Brynner or Natalie Wood, just to name 3, Sean Connery, a lot of people, you'll see interviews with them. So my interviews on Bill Boggs TV go all the way back to 1969 and as recently as a week ago with Alan Zweibel on my podcast, Trapped Live.
I looked at your interviews. And Natalie Wood, oh my goodness sakes, you got Natalie Wood, you've got, like you said, Richard Pryor. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. But everybody who came through, when they say you got them, they wanted to be on the show because they were just like me promoting my book. They wanted to promote something. And that was always the quid pro quo. In fact, to a fault, because sometimes I once met Lauren Bacall. Oh, my hobby happens to be name dropping. I once met Lauren Bacall at the Tonys, where I was a voter. And anyway, she said, gee, I watched your show. I'd love to come and be on the program. So the next morning, I was so excited that this actress Lauren Bacall, who had a tremendous career, had been married to Humphrey Bogart, been married to Jason Robards, would come and do the show, but the producers wouldn't let her on because she didn't have anything to plug. And I include that in one of the many, I got to talk about the book for a little bit.
Let's do that.
The book involves a talk show host like me and his dog, Spike, who become big stars. And a lot of the things in the book about television and media are complete satire, but based on truth. That we actually had major guests who couldn't get on the show because they didn't have anything to plug, meaning that just the value of talking to a guest, right, was not worth it unless the guest could say, well, I wrote a book. And that was, in my opinion, quite stupid, quite stupid.
Yes.
I send that up in the book. I'm holding the book upside down like the Trump held the Bible upside down. Oh, there it is. It's The Adventures of Spike the Wonder Dog. It's told to Bill Boggs. It's published by Postal Press. It's the most recent review. That wasn't a major magazine. It was Pet Lifestyles magazine. Nevertheless, they said, we'll have you rolling on the floor laughing.
Oh.
So, and Winston Groom, who wrote Forrest Gump, highly original and hilarious satire. So if you like dogs, you like to laugh, and you need a summer read, The Adventures of Spike the Wonder Dog. That's my official pitch.
I love it. And Spike was a real dog of yours that you had, and
Yeah,
he takes on your persona. He's the speaker in the book.
Yeah, it's Winston Groom, who I just mentioned, who wrote Forrest Gump, said that Spike is fiction's funniest canine. I mean, there have been a lot of dogs in fiction, going back to Call of the Wild, The Dog's Purpose, The Art of Racing in the Rain, and so forth. But the character we have here in The Adventures of Spike the Wonder Dog is the funniest of the lot, according to the critics. So, the funny dog.
You have been written up for this book in so many different places. I was going through the list: Wall Street Journal, New York Times. I mean, it doesn't get better than this, Bill Boggs.
Thank you. Yes, thank you. Well, the dog narrates the book. And by the way, a portion of the proceeds of The Adventures of Spike the Wonder Dog going to go to animal rescue organizations, because one of the things that happens is Spike gets kidnapped in the book and disappears.
We have to read it to find out what happens at the end.
No, I can't give away what happens.
So I'm assuming that the dog is taking on all the responsibility and the wonder of becoming famous. You aren't. You're not dealing with it. The dog has to cope.
Yeah, Linda, part of the story is about the price of fame and the value of big time fame versus small time accomplishment. So I mean, there's an underscore in it. It's also a love story between a man and an animal. I mean, look how much we love our animals. We love our pets, and dog stories are really popular. I just hope mine can enter the mainstream and make people laugh. You know, that's been my goal. My goal is not like, oh, I got to make a fortune. I just want people to read the book and enjoy themselves. And it's available in Kindle. Middle of next month, it's going to be audio version. It's available in hardback. Just go to orderspike.com, go to Amazon, The Adventures of Spike the Wonder Dog. If you want to laugh, I challenge you. You will laugh. You will laugh.
I'm going to buy it. I'm going broke fast doing these interviews. This is like my 424th interview, and I think I buy something from every fifth person.
Well, that's the kind of host we like.
Yes, I tell you. They can see me coming a mile away, but I'm a huge fan of yours. So
Thank
to
you.
be able to just talk with you, I would love to pick your brain about the interviewing you've done. I know that just real briefly, when you interview, did you accidentally open somebody up and they said something that you had no idea was going to come out of their mouth that was like, oh my gosh, are you allowed to talk about that?
I can talk about anything I want. You know, the interview process, Linda, is just like you're doing. You're a very good interviewer. You're just talking. We're having a conversation. I think that more energy is projected, you know, because you know you're on television. you know people are watching, right? Um, the technique essentially that evolved with me was just getting the guests to relax and open up. I can't honestly, in all the thousands of interviews, recall any one shocking thing that I quote got someone to say. I'm sure that they exist, but no one ever asked me that question before. I don't have an answer for it.
It's wonderful. So,
That's a strike.
how many years of your life did you dedicate to writing this book, The Adventures of Spike the Wonder Dog?
Well, I think that the whole process took about 3 years, including writing it, the first draft, and then having 8 people read the first draft and give me feedback. And when I got the feedback that every 8 people said, and I said, I want you to be brutally honest. They said, no, they said, Bill, this is funny. I really enjoyed it. I don't normally laugh out loud while reading a book. Now, that's exact, honest truth, what people said to me. And then I knew I really had something. So I took another several months to punch it up, put in more relevant stuff as things were happening, because it's set in the present day. And so I think the whole process, and then getting the book deal took some time, was about 3 years.
Wow. Thank you for doing that. I can't wait to get my copy and read it. And I want all of you listening to, and I've mega posted it on Facebook for people to entice them.
I like Facebook. I've connected with people whom I don't think on any level I would have reconnected with. It doesn't mean I've seen them, but you know, when you met somebody and worked with them like 35 years ago and they drop out of your life, and then suddenly you're back and able to talk to them, even though it's just on Facebook through Messenger or whatever. I like that. It gives me a good feeling. I know there were a huge amount of controversy surrounding Facebook. From my personal standpoint as a user, I found it very gratifying.
Me too. It's like going to a reunion every day. You can look anyone up. I looked up a guy that ghosted me in 1966 and found him because of Facebook.
And what did you do? Why anyone would have done that to you? In fact, in 1966, we didn't have the term ghosted. It was just like, he dumped me. He dumped me.
I followed him around during summer camp and he didn't even say goodbye to me. I was just like, he'd say, you want to go here? You want to go there? And then didn't even say goodbye. So I found him. I said, why did you do that?
Follow him around now too. You should follow him on Facebook.
Isn't life funny the way things turn out? You know, eventually.
Linda, where are you from? Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Portland, Oregon. My parents survived the Holocaust. That's the one that did exist. That's the one they survived. And then after trying to fit in Portland, Oregon, I raised a daughter because I'm Jewish and I like to suffer. I raised a child alone and traveled a lot and did comedy everywhere, a little here in New York and California, 3 counties, and back to Portland, and now I'm in Vegas, baby.
Oh, really? What are things like in Las Vegas now, Linda? If you and I know it's the morning there, if we were to drive over to say Caesars and pull up under the big portico there, the largest freestanding one in the world at Caesars Palace, and walk inside, what would it be like at late morning in Las Vegas inside Caesars now?
It's about 1/3 to 1/2 of the normal traffic.
That's still a lot. That's still a lot.
And I'd say probably 2/3 of the people are wearing masks if they don't get caught.
They don't require
masks. They do inside, but
that's what I meant, inside.
Right. But there are those that get inside and then take their masks off, I've noticed, and there's not enough security to catch it. So I live right by the stratosphere and they have to wear a mask, but then they'll find creative ways to take them off and you can't catch them all. Yeah. But there's not that much traffic inside the casinos. I think people are really walking outside and outdoor eating and walking the strip.
How about
driving.
Any of the big shows on, Linda, in Vegas?
No, the powers that be are not allowing that yet. And there are,
just the gambling, but about the retail, like the gallery, form of Caesars, is that open?
Yes, That's
Uh,
open. It's been, as you know, it's been very scary. This is something, this and having a child is something we don't get a manual for. We don't know how to make it through a pandemic. And,
Hardly.
craziest time I ever saw, I would rather raise 15 more children than go through this ever again.
Well, what's the most difficult part of it for you?
For me, it's being as conservative as I am, not politically, I'm not talking political, just I'm very conservative. If you tell me there might be a virus, I'm wearing a mask. And then the amount of flack you get from people for being paranoid or overly cautious, whatever they want to say, you're just standing firm that this is what I do, and whatever you do, that's on you. But this is what I'm doing. I don't judge you. Don't judge me. That's the hardest.
That's fair. We really should have a national mandate to wear masks because it's scientifically proven it's going to help. And look, it's worse now than it's better in New York, but in the country, it's worse now than it was in April when everybody was horrified. Here in Florida, something's going to have to happen, or it's going to be an epidemic. People are going to be dropping over in the streets. If you have to understand exponential mathematics, if we had 10,000 people die yesterday, in a couple of weeks, that's going to be 20,000 people.
Exactly.
I'm sorry to say.
Just in one day during the pandemic, I lost 5 fellow comedian friends.
Wow. Sorry to hear that.
Yeah, it's really been serious, and I don't want people making light of it, But
no, there's no reason that people. We've had 150,000 people die in the United States. This is no. I know it's a comedy show. This is no joke.
None whatsoever. I mean, there's silly things that happen in a pandemic that we can make jokes of, But as far as the reality of the dying and the devastation of people's livelihoods, or if there ever was a time where we all got a grip on the fact that we could all be homeless, this would be the time that we should really get that and start loving one another, not arguing.
Yeah, and laughing at one another and not being so easily offended. That's why I put politically incorrect humor right there on the cover of the book.
I love it.
I just figured, as people are so easily offended these days, why not warn them in advance? In the book, you might be offended by objectification of women. You might be offended by cultural appropriation. You might be offended by things I'm saying about television. You might be offended by my description of the current culture. It could be anything, and then you get offended. So I'm warning you in advance. And most people, and I did that not for commercial reasons. I did it for artistic reasons. I have too many comedian friends who find that, they go on stage, they say one thing about their wife or something that somebody didn't like, and then they're vilified in social media the next day by one person out of 300 in the audience.
Absolutely. This cancel culture is crazy. It's like, do we have freedom of speech? That's what it makes me wonder.
Yeah.
I get it. If you do something really horrible, say to a woman, you should get canceled. But as far as freedom of speech, holy Toledo, I don't know what to make of this world right now. I had a joke when I go on stage. If I think the crowd is very tight, I'll say, everything you say on stage has to be 100% politically correct right now, right?
Well, that's what we're just talking about.
Yeah. And then I'll say, so good night. Like, good luck. Let me know how that works for you. It's impossible to be 100% politically correct if you think about it.
So the comedy scene in Las Vegas has always been terrific, right?
Absolutely. Oh,
is Carrot Top still working Las Vegas? Unbelievable. He's been working in Las Vegas for like 25 years.
My God.
Does he ever go anywhere else? What other comedians are working Vegas all the time? Like 6-7 months a year. Who else?
Eddie Griffin and George Wallace.
Oh, I love George Wallace.
Those are the top ones that are always here. And then you have all the big names that come through on a regular at Comedy Cellar and at I forgot the guy's name. All the big clubs, you know, there's the man, I can't think of his name. Big Talk, Brad Garrett's comedy club, Jimmy Kimmel's.
I like Sinbad. You know, we did a show in the mid 80s. When I say we, my business partner, Richard Baker, and I bought Boggs Baker Productions, called Comedy Tonight. And it was syndicated in 122 stations around the country on at various times in the evening. In New York, it was on at 12:30 at night. Unfortunately, opposite Letterman, but we still did okay. And we auditioned, like a lot of the people you just mentioned. George Wallace was on the show. Sinbad was on the show a couple of times. Let's see, who else was? Dice Clay was on the show. Bob Saget was on the show. Penn and Teller. We had a lot of wonderful people on that show.
Penn and Teller here on Always Here.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's nice to see them. All the big names come through Vegas. I was doing work at Harvey's Comedy Club in Portland, Oregon, interviewing the talent that would come through. And at one point I took a vacation to come to Vegas and got to meet everybody over at the Tropicana with Harry Basil's group. And I'm like, what am I doing in Portland? Everybody in Vegas is my age. Yeah. So I moved here.
It's tough in Portland right now. It's a good thing you're not there. Boy, rough. Very rough in Portland.
So bad. They tore down a deer statue. I don't know.
What statue?
They burned up and tore down a statue of a deer.
A deer? Well, you know, there's the Bambi people. The people who really have always been offended by Bambi. Bambi's, father was shot, or was his mother. A lot of Bambi's parents were shot, and he ended up with a friend named Thumper. Let's just hope the rabbit statue doesn't get torn down. That's all I can. Yeah. How's Pinocchio doing? The liars are offended. The liars are offended by that nose of Pinocchio's, and the liars, people who like to lie, they're offended by a Pinocchio statue. So
it would be offensive.
Right. Remember Thumper? Very cute. By the way, you know that Monday was National, that this is actually National Rabbit Week? These are the things that you read that stick with you. Would that I could remember David Brooks' column in the New York Times, but National Rabbit Week, this I remember.
Wow.
Yeah, oh yeah, that's busy. That's a biggie. Oh yeah, Linda.
Tell me what you plan to do for the rest of your life. You've already left a huge legacy, a big mark, a big splash in the world, doing so much for entertainment, for news, for your school. UPenn must have plaques of you on the wall. You must have a whole wing over there at UPenn. What else do you want to accomplish when you've accomplished this much?
You are saying, what will I do with the rest of my life? The north and south and east and west of my life? All of that?
Yeah. Oh.
Yes. Okay. I will continue to stay alive as best I possibly can. That is my initial goal, to beat death today. To quote Heinrich Müller on the Netflix series A French Village. Today I must defeat death. So that's my goal, one day at a time. And I'm actually serious. Stay as live and healthy as long as possible is what I want to do the rest of my life. In terms of my career, I'm dedicating the rest of my life to be a writer of essentially satire. I'm going to start soon a sequel that's going to be called Spike Unleashed, The Wonder Dog Returns. I mean, the second volume of the Spike, what will be the Spike trilogy.
Will you hold your book up again, Bill?
Sure. My arm automatically flies up into that situation. I see. There you go. The Adventures of Spike the Wonder Dog, as told to Bill Boggs, available on Amazon. Hold on just a second.
Saved by the bell.
I have to take care of that. Okay. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you just perfectly.
Probably cut the phone. So I guess I need to sign off, but thank you very much.
One more plug for your book, please, Bill.
What?
Give me one more solid plug for your book, Spike the Wonder Dog.
Okay. The New York Post says takes you on a darkly comic journey. The New York Daily News says Spike will keep you laughing and on the edge of your seat at the same time. This one is made for the big screen. Mark Elliott, the New York Times bestselling author, Bill Boggs has hit a home run on this highly original and hilarious satire on everything. And the great comedy writer, Thurber Prize-winning author, Alan Zweibel said, so smart, witty, and inventive that I had to keep reminding myself that I didn't write it. So that's Spike the Wonder Dog, the adventures of Spike the Wonder Dog. Thank you very much, Linda.
Thank you so very much, Bill Boggs. Let's get out and buy his book today.
Thank you.
A Labor of Love, Spike the Wonder Dog. Thank you so much, Bill Boggs. Love you.
Yourself. Be careful.
Okay. Yes, you too. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.